Hello everybody, my name is Nemo and welcome to another Magic video, and today we're going to be talking about Bounce and Boon. I figured I'd get this deck build done soon as well, just so you guys know how to play these new 2 DLC decks. I figured I'd give them some priority over the other deck builds. So here we go, my deck build for Bounce and Boon. And there's basically 2 different ways of building this deck, but one is pretty bad, so that's not the build I'm using. There's basically you can try going for a build with some attended knights or something like that, and then try and bounce those guys. But what I'm mainly focusing on is just surviving pretty much eternally and kicking my opponent's ass with flyers. One thing about that is you don't really want to go up against the elf deck, because games tend to take like 3 hours to complete. If they got some well-wishers out and you got your combo out, and they don't have any removal, so you know you're gonna win. It's just gonna take like 3 hours to kill them because they've got well-wishers. That is the worst thing ever. But yeah, I actually had a game that lasted quite long. It was boring. It was the worst. It's the worst matchup in the game. Not in terms of, unwinnable, because this deck definitely has the edge over elves, I would say, but just in terms of how boring the game gets, that is just the absolute worst. It is the absolute liver worst. So I'm running my deck with 27 lands, and I guess I should address this because I saw some deck lists in the forums that are pretty much identical to my deck build, except they're running 24 lands. And a few more early drops in the deck. And like this deck, what it really wants to do is get to have a bunch of lands out and then do some crazy shenaniganry with some cards and how they interact with each other. You basically want to get some combos going, either to stall the opponent indefinitely or get a huge board advantage on the board. And that's basically what this deck is about. So you want to get into your late game. Now, obviously, early drops can help you there, but adding them instead of additional lands when you definitely need more lands to be able to play your spells. Like, what are those early drops really going to do if you think about it? Well, they're going to stall your opponent until you draw your lands. In this case, if I'm just adding more land instead of those early drops, I get to draw those lands instead of the early drops. And, of course, this at some point you gotta start adding early drops instead of lands, obviously. Like, you can't take that argument too far, but I think 27 lands is pretty decent for this deck. You basically just, whenever you're building a deck, you really just gotta focus on what's my strategy, alright, how many lands do I need for that strategy to work, and then you fill out the deck with the rest of your cards. You don't just go, oh, I wanna be running these creatures. Well, I got room for 24 lands. Alright, slap it, slap it, what? Just slap it. Slap the deck, bam, done. What? What am I even saying there? Slap a seal on it is what I was trying to say. Slap a seal on it, you're done. But yeah, that's not how it works. You want to figure out how much lands you need, and then fill out the decks with the rest of the deck with the rest of the cards, basically. In this case, I think 27 is pretty normal, right number for this deck. Normally, you mainly see even numbers of lands. I don't know why, really, and it's kind of my preference as well, for some odd reason. Oh no, wait, for some even reason. Famous joke ever. For some even reason, I want to run even lands, but there's really no, like, if 27 makes sense, then you run 27, right? In this deck, I think 27 makes sense. I'm running 5, 6, actually I'm running 4 6 drops and 1 7 drop, and that's not insanely late game. Like, that's not running an insane amount of late game bombs, but it is quite a few. And plus I want 8 lands to be able to play 2 of my 4 drops the same turn, namely Stonehorn Dignitary and Dust Elemental. So I want to get to 8 lands at some point in the game. I don't have to get there early, but I want to be able to get there. So I think 27, like, it's not an insanely late game deck, but it is a late game deck. So I think the number is between 26 and 28, and that's 27. There you go. That's the amount of lands we're running. So we're 5 minutes in and I haven't even started talking about the first cards. Let's do that. Soul Warden, need to run this card. It's just an obvious include. This deck wants to be a late game deck, so gaining some life to help you survive until you get there is pretty nice. Plus, these are some early guys that you can drop on the board, and they don't require you to pick something up or something like that. And there's quite a few number of creatures that are great that do want you to pick something up. So having some that don't, that's pretty useful. So we've got Pacifism, obviously a run that 2 Pacifism the deck has. It's basically the only removal in the deck. There's 2 other cards that are kind of removal, but Pacifism is, a cheap removal that doesn't give your opponent cards. So you want to run these. They're not always great, but you don't really have a choice in the matter. You gotta run them. We don't run the Core Skyfishers. We don't run the White Main Lions. We don't run these Lone Missionaries, and we don't run the Kinsbale Skirmishers. So basically, all of these are pretty early drops. And the reason I'm not running the White Main Lions and the Core Skyfishers, well, first of all, like I said, I want to be running 27 lands. But secondly, if you look at my free drops, there's quite a few free drops here, and you'd think, well, why don't you just take out an Emancipation Angel and add a Core Skyfisher instead? Well, the answer is quite simple, in fact. Yeah, so if I draw a Core Skyfisher turn 2, then if I didn't drop a Soul Warden, which is a lot of the times I'm not gonna drop a Soul Warden, then it's kind of, it stops them one more turn, but I also delay myself a turn by dropping the Core Skyfisher and having to return a land to my hand. And if that's the case, then I might as well just play a turn 3 and then return a land to my hand, because I've got so many free drops already in the deck that I want to be running, that the next turn I can drop another land and drop another free drop that turn. Whereas if turn 2 I'm playing a Core Skyfisher, then it's 2 more turns until I get to drop my free drop. So basically it takes me the same amount of turns to get 2 dudes on the board. So I may as well play the more powerful one. In a sense, it doesn't cost me 1 more mana if I'm curving out. If I'm curving out, then the Emancipation Angel doesn't cost me 1 more mana than Core Skyfisher. Of course, if I draw late game, then it being a little bit cheaper, Core Skyfisher can be more useful. But yeah, I do like having a 3/3 instead of a 2/3. And the White Main Lions, I just don't really like them. It does have flash, but even compared then, a 2/2 with flash versus a 2/3 flyer, I like the 2/3 flyer more. I guess you can do some combat tricks with this guy, but I don't really. I mean, if it's not a better card, flash to me is mostly a bonus on my creatures. I don't really. If the one guy is just better, I mean, it's a flyer with 2/3 flyer, and this is a 2/2 flash guy. It's sometimes a combat trick, sometimes not, and most of the time a 2/2 that's on the ground isn't really doing much in this deck, because I want to be winning by flyer. So if I were to include any of them, I'd include the Core Skyfisher, but I don't. The other problem is this requires you to return a creature you control to your hand, whereas this only requires a permanent, so you can actually return a land to your hand, or if indeed you pacified something and now it's no longer a problem and the opponent has a bigger bomb out, you can return a pacifism with the Skyfisher. So definitely like those better. We've got Lone Missionary. He's a 2/1 that gains your life. So you'd think the gaining of life is pretty nice for a deck that does want to go late game, but he doesn't really help you survive all that well, because he is still just a 2/1 and he can't really block with 1/1s. Like most aggro decks are going to be attacking with a lot of 1/1s. He doesn't really do much once he's in play, so it's a lot of the times all you get out of him is the 4 life, and he's not even a dude, because he mostly can't attack, he mostly can't block. So yeah, that's my main complaint about him. Got Kinsbale Skirmisher here. Another combat tricky guy. That's not really what I'm trying to accomplish with this deck, so and it's only until end of turn. If that was a permanent +1/+1 counter, I'd think about it. I don't know if I would run it at that point, but only until end of turn doesn't really sit that well with me. If he had flash, then the combat trick would be more useful, I guess. So Mantle of Leadership, a 2-cost aura. This one's a little weird. it sort of is what the deck is trying to do, it sort of isn't. The fact that it has flash is kind of confusing because there's not a lot of situations where that's relevant, which is just weird. I guess, I mean, if you have 6 mana out, you can flash this in and then Restoration Angel, and the opponent will never expect that one. But it's just weird why it has flash, and it is sort of what the deck is trying to do, but I guess it would be better in the other build, but even then I didn't really like the card that much. So you can make one dude huge, but it's probably going to get chump blocked, because it doesn't give it trample, and nothing in the deck does have trample. You can make a flyer huge, I guess that's decent, you know, but I'm not a huge fan of the card, just, you know. So we've got Show of Valor here. Since I'm not running a lot of 2-drops, I don't know, I don't really like it that much, and I tried it because I was like, yeah, the deck needs to survive, so getting some common tricks, since I'm lacking removal, seems like a good idea, but it didn't really do much for me, and sometimes you draw this instead of a dude. And again, it is somewhat of a combo deck, so you want to be drawing your combos. You want to be drawing your Flickerwisp with something that you want to be Flickerwisping. And including a Show of Valor means there's less chance of that happening. And I guess the same goes for Mantle of Leadership as well. We've got Blade Splicer here. It's a pretty nice card. This is one of those cards that are kind of thrown in randomly because it's not really what I'm trying to accomplish. But it does help me survive quite well if I can start Flickerwisping this guy. Then, you know, having a bunch of free first strikers out on the board can really stop someone from ever attacking you. So that's pretty nice, and I guess he can be a win condition in and of itself, but it's not really going to happen a lot of the time. But he makes for nice defense with all those free first strikers. The nice thing about first strike is that if you have multiple guys with first strike, then the opponent is going to have a hard time attacking you. So we've got Attended Knight, which I am not running. I think it's just worse than Blade Splicer, obviously, because instead of getting a 1/1 and a 3/3 first strike, you get a 2/2 first strike and a 1/1. So there's less power on the board, but yeah. And the first strike guy is smaller. So yeah, obviously Blade Splicer seems better to me. And plus you can't make multiple Attended Knights with one Attended Knight by Flickerwisping it. You just get a bunch of 1/1 tokens that don't have first strike. So that's a little bit less appealing to me. And I want to be winning in the air. I'm not really trying to Flickerwisp this guy a bunch of times to get a huge army. That's not really what I'm trying to do with this deck. So, well, we got Court Street Denizen here. Whenever another white creature enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature an opponent controls. The thing about this is, once I am winning, it doesn't really matter to me how long it takes for me to win. And mainly what I'm focusing on is just surviving. And then eventually I win. And this guy doesn't help you survive unless you couple it with Restoration Angel or something, I guess. But he only taps your opponent's creatures on your turn normally. So he doesn't really help me survive, and I guess he can help me get in with my creatures. But once I start with my weirdo combos in this deck, then I can delay my opponent pretty much for a very, very long time. And it doesn't really matter to me how long it takes for me to kill them. So I don't really see the point of this card in this deck, basically. If he kept their guys tapped on their turn, then he would be a lot more valuable. We've got Kemba Skyguard here, a 2/2 flyer that gains you 2 life. Yeah, I mean, again, the life gain, you'd think it helps you survive, but what helps you survive more is having a bigger flyer than a 2/2. So I prefer that. And yeah, you can do some tricks with him, but you would include him instead of something that can actually do those tricks. So, meh. And we also have Solemn Offering here. I wouldn't blame you for running the card. I just think it's too narrow. Like, I think something like this is needed in the format, and especially a deck that tries to survive for a long time. Because, you know, the longer you try to make the games go on, the more chance of them actually, the more chance of a card like this being relevant. But the thing is, some decks don't even have artifacts or enchantments, and most players don't run them if they do, and there's just a lot of chance of this being irrelevant, and then I just don't like this. I want something more flexible that can actually do something when there's no artifact or enchantment, and can deal with an artifact or enchantment. So You know, like Oblivion Ring. That would be much more useful. But sadly, we don't have an Oblivion Ring. This deck would be way better if it did have an Oblivion Ring, by the way, just saying, because what this deck is lacking is removal. But yeah, so I don't run it, but I guess you can throw one in if you really, you know, if you really like. I hate not having an answer at all against artifacts or cabins, then, you know, throw one in. We've got the cards I am running in free drop here. We got Emancipation Angel, and this is a free flyer. When it enters the battlefield, return a permanent you control to its owner's hand. I like it a lot, and I like the art on this as well. Look at that, gorgeous art. So yeah, we run those. We also run Flickerwisp, a free cost, 3/1 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So mechanically, I like this card better. Art, I like this card better, because this, what the crap is this thing even? I have no idea. Why is this, like, it looks like this thing should be a black card, if you just look at the art. What? This is stuff made from nightmares. But yeah, it's a fun card though. I mean, mechanically I like this a lot, because I don't have to pick up my guy, I don't have to replay it slowly and all that. This just does immediately what I want, and that's better. But you know, gameplay wise, I don't know which one I like better, simply because this guy does have 3 toughness, where this one only 1 toughness. But a lot of the time, Flickerwisp is really what I need, and so I think Flickerwisp is more valuable. But really, you're on just all of these that you can. Simple as that. We got Core Hookmaster. If you're trying to survive, then tapping down the dude and having it stay tapped during their turn, that's pretty nice. Not bad at all. And you can flicker this, of course, and gain quite a couple of turns with Core Skyfisher. So it's really one of those cards that I just consider must run in this deck, because you know, if you flicker it, then you gain another turn to get to your lands, to get more time to be able to have enough lands out or draw your combo pieces and start comboing, basically. So Oblation, I don't like this as removal. I like it to draw cards. I play a dude like Core Hookmaster. He's done his job, unless I can flicker him again. But like normally he'll have done his job, and then I Oblation the Core Hookmaster and get to draw 2 cards off of it. So I delayed my opponent a turn and I drew 2 cards. Doesn't seem bad to me at all. And it gets me through my deck faster, gets me to those combo pieces that I'm looking for. It gets me to the land count that I'm looking for as well. As removal, sometimes you need to use this because pacifism just doesn't do enough. In that case, you know, I don't like the card, but sometimes you just gotta do it, and you know, giving them 2 cards to deal with a dude, that's so bad, but sometimes you gotta do it, you know. I mean, if you're playing against a Reanimator deck and they get Gristlebrand, Runescar Demon out fast, then you probably gotta Oblation that. At least this way they don't get it back or something. I mean, if you have pacifism, that's a lot more useful, but if you don't, then yeah, you gotta Oblation that and hope just that the 2 cards to draw aren't gonna be too useful to them. But the problem with that is, even if those cards aren't too useful, they're still going through their deck faster, so they get to the useful cards faster as well. So yeah, I really don't like it as removal. But, you know, you don't really have much choice sometimes, because otherwise, there's only 4 removal cards in the deck, so yeah. So moving on to the forecast stuff here. We obviously run Solemn Simulacrum, so I guess technically you could see it as 29 lands, I guess, because this guy comes in and draws me a land. Or looks through my library and puts a land on the battlefield tapped and shuffle my library. And when he dies, I can draw cards. So yeah, that really does help me in my getting to my land drops as well. So we've got Resto Angel here. Flash flying. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-angel creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So it's the only one of these that actually has flash, and that already makes it quite useful. Well, I guess White Main Line has flash, but this guy is also a flyer, a 3/4 flyer, and I just like it a lot more. And he can't target angels, so you may want to keep that in mind. Because if I look through my deck here, there's actually two things I want to discuss with him that you want to keep in mind. Sunblast Angel is an angel, obviously. It's Sunblast Angel, so I don't know why you would be confused about that. But hey, it is an angel. Just saying. So you can't flicker him with Restoration Angel, but if you happen to have a Flickerwisp out, then you can flicker the Flickerwisp with Restoration Angel, and then flicker the Sunblast Angel with Flickerwisp. So there is a way around that, but yeah. It's a little unfortunate at times that you can't do that, but that's really the only time it's, gonna be relevant that he can't target non-angel creatures. Other than that, it's just a good guy, and it's, it fits this deck a lot, so yeah. So another thing that you want to keep in mind with Restoration Angel is we've got the Stonehorn Dignitary here, and this is basically like a huge combo piece to this deck. This is, if you draw this guy and don't have an answer for him, then with all the flickering you can be gaining a lot of turns that you can... I guess I should really speak about this guy first before I talk about Dust Elemental, because this guy explains why Dust Elemental is even in the deck. So kind of makes sense to talk about this guy while I'm at it. So it's when it enters the battlefield, target opponent skips his or her next combat phase, and this buys you time because this is a late game deck, and once you can start, chaining this guy off and gaining a lot of turns, then it basically doesn't really matter how long it takes to kill the opponent. As long as you can keep this going, then eventually you're gonna kill the opponent, and they can't really do much about it. And it helps that most of your guys that work together well with this guy by flickering it are flyers, so they sometimes can't even block him. So yeah, that's pretty nice. So basically you stop them from ever attacking you, and you attack in the air. That's the idea of the deck. So Stonehorn Dignitary, quite nice guy. And with Restoration Angel, one thing you gotta keep in mind is that if you play Restoration Angel, if you have Restoration Angel in hand and you wanna play it during your opponent's turn to flicker the Stonehorn Dignitary, and not allow them to attack, then my advice is to not do that and instead play Restoration Angel on your turn. Why, would you ask? Well, because it makes them skip his or her next combat phase. And the thing is, once they click from the main phase, continue, and they're going toward their combat phase, basically, that's already inside their combat phase. That is called the beginning of combat step, and you can react to that, but it's already in their combat phase. So if you then flicker your Stonehorn Dignitary with Restoration Angel, they don't have to skip that combat phase. They skip the next combat phase on their next turn. So you want to keep that in mind, because you can definitely, don't get fooled by that. So my advice is, like normally in like a normal game of Magic or on Magic Online, you could just like play the Restoration Angel during their upkeep and wouldn't have this problem. But unfortunately, in this game, I mean, what can happen is the opponent just immediately clicks continue during their turn, and then you're already too late. So it's kind of a risk doing that. Of course, your opponent could have counterspells. You may want them to have to spend the counterspell on their turn, etc., etc. So sometimes, I don't know, you may just want to skip to your opponent's turn and be ramming that button, to play the Restoration Angel on their turn, but before they can click continue to go to the combat step. But oh, the mind games, people! Oh, the mind games! But yeah. So another thing you want to keep in mind with Stonehorn Dignitary is that I did mention this in a different video, but I should mention it in this deck build. He stacks with himself, so his triggers stack. And what this means is, if you play multiple Stonehorn Dignitaries, or you play Stonehorn Dignitary and you flicker it in the same turn, or you flicker it twice in the same turn, then the opponent is going to skip however many times you did that. That's how many combat phases they're gonna skip, because it doesn't count a combat phase that's already skipped. So they skip the next combat phase that they would have gotten. So basically it stacks, and if you flicker it twice during a turn, then the next 2 turns the opponent can't attack. So pretty nice there. So that's it. And the Dust Elemental is in the deck because it combos really well with Stonehorn Dignitary and any other dude that has Flicker. Because you can keep chaining it and you can make it so the opponent never can attack you. And if all they've got is sorcery speed removal, then they can't ever deal with it either. So that's the idea, that's what Dust Elemental is about. It's also, however, a 6/6 flash flying fear dude. And it's quite nice, and it's protection against mass removal, which is also quite nice, so I really like the card. This is also one of those cards. You gotta judge this kind of card once you've got the rest of the deck build complete. You don't want to judge this early when you're just messing around with some cards and you don't know what to do with the deck yet. And then go, it didn't really work too well for me, I guess Dust Elemental's out. Because it really depends on how the rest of the deck is set up, whether a card like this is going to be successful or not. And it is successful in this build. In fact, it's very successful, and it's one of those key cards that I'm hoping to draw pretty much every game. So, moving on here, we don't run Healer of the Pride. It's pretty nice life gain. It's definitely not a bad card in this deck and would make a lot of sense to run it. I just don't really have room for it. So, if you look at, I'm running 9 4-drops, and yeah. I think all these other 4-drops are basically must run, so I don't really have room for Healer of the Pride. But it's a great card. I definitely see the point of the card in this deck. I just don't have room for it. We've got Valor here, and yeah, first strike as long as Valor is in your graveyard and you control Plains creatures you control have first strike. So it's not a bad card at all. As I was talking about with the Blade Splicer, if all your dudes have first strike, if you got a lot of dudes with first strike, the opponent is going to have a hard time attacking you at all. So this guy gives all your dudes first strike, and that's quite nice if he's in the graveyard. So you want him in the graveyard basically. But he is a 4-drop, and I don't really have room for different 4-drops, so that's why I'm not running him. Proper Burial, whenever a creature you control dies, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. This doesn't do a whole lot. And why would you be gaining life with an enchantment when you could be playing a dude that gains your life? So, yeah. We've got Light from Within here, a 4-cost enchantment that has Chroma. Each creature you control gets +1/+1 for each white mana symbol in its mana cost. That's quite nice. There are a lot of cards in this deck that have double white in their casting cost. Like this guy, it would be an 8/8. We've got Flickerwisp, which would be a 5/3. We've got Emancipation Angel, a 5/5. So, yeah. You can get some pretty big flyers with Light from Within, and it's one of those cards that really makes the opponent have a hard time attacking you if you got some really big guys that can just block all their dudes. So I just consider it a really good card. Basically must run. There's some debate whether you want to run all of these, because you also have Kafar's Crusade that is even a bigger must run in my book. So you could maybe take one out. But I think I just want to draw at least one of these enchantments basically each game, because they're going to help me so much. So I run 4 of them. We've got, moving on to the 5-drops here, we've got Cloud Goat Ranger, a 5-cost 3/3. When Cloud Goat Ranger enters the battlefield, put 3 1/1 white Kifkin soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. With tap 3 untapped Kifkin you control, Cloud Goat Ranger gets +2/+0. And gains flying until end of turn. There's a couple of reasons why I like this card. First of all, well, he puts 6 power on the board for 5 mana. That's not bad. Secondly, he puts a load of dudes on the board, so you get a bunch of guys, and that's quite nice with Kafar's Crusade, obviously. And, just being able to chump block with all those guys is pretty nice as well. And next, he is kind of a flyer, because you can give him flying by tapping those Kifkin. So you want to be winning with your flyers, and this is a way to do it. And last, you can of course flicker him and get more Kifkin, which is nice. And then you can tap 6 Kifkin to give him +4/+0 in flying. He gets double flying. Yeah, he flies over the flyers. No, that's not how that works. But so yeah. Nice card, and works really well with Kafar's Crusade. And also, those Kifkin are soldiers, so there's another reason I like it, which is that it works well with Captain of the Watch. So, quite nice card indeed. We don't run these Archon of Redemption. They do have some life gain. I just rather have something that makes my combo work than adding something that randomly gains me some life. Because if I can get my combo working, then I don't need a life gain. And a lot of the time I'm gaining a bunch of life anyways, just randomly here and there with the Soul Wardens. And I think that's enough of a life gain for me. I don't know. Yes, I am running a lot of flyers, so think of all the life gain I could be gaining. But I don't know, I'd rather just have something that makes my combo work. And this doesn't really attribute to that. It is something that you can, like, Flickerwisp this guy, but whatever, all you gain out of that is life. I'd rather get a huge board position than that. So we've got a Welcome Guide here. It's a flying dude, and when Welcome Guide enters the battlefield, target creature gets +2/+2 and gains flying until end of turn. So I kind of see the point in this deck with it. Namely, you can flicker him and keep using that ability, but honestly, it's such a small effect that I don't really see the point in it. I mean, this guy isn't worth playing by himself. He's only, and most of the other stuff is worth playing even if you don't get to combo with them, but it's better if you get to combo with them. So, Welcome Guide falls in that camp where it's only really worth it if you do have some way of flickering him repeatedly. And, sometimes you don't have that, and other than that, I mean, even if you do, it's only +2/+2 against flying, and the flying is usually irrelevant because most of my guys that are threats already have flying, so just don't like the card that much. So I've got Kafar's Crusade. It's a really key card to this deck. It's a must run. So yeah, basically that's the point about this card. It's 5 cost and enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. There's a lot of ways of dropping multiple dudes on the board with a single card, like the Cloud Code Ranger and the Blade Splicer, but even stuff like Flickerwisp that enters the battlefield and makes another dude enter the battlefield again. That's like +2/+2 to all your guys is already nice. So it's just a really good card, and it works well with Attendant Knight as well, of course, but I don't really like Attendant Knight in the deck, so. But yeah, it's not really necessary to survive, but it is a really great way of surviving, as long as, you don't tap out on a turn that they're gonna kill you. Like, if the opponent is really aggressive, then sometimes you don't have time to play this, and that would be unfortunate. But even when you already have the board, locked up by being able to keep on returning Stonehorn Dignitary and playing that, I mean, this just helps you kill them faster, especially in the case with the Elf deck, like I was mentioning. The main problem, the reason it took me like 4 hours to kill the Elf deck, was because the Kafar's Crusade was just in the last 15 cards or so in my deck, and it took forever without them. But yeah, so this helps a lot, and it helps you survive as well, as long as you have a turn to play it and not die on their turn. So pretty good card though. So we've got Duplicant here. This is your 4th removal card, and it's quite expensive as a removal card, but luckily, you can reuse it, so that's the thing. One thing to keep in mind with Duplicant, you'd think it works like Clone. It doesn't. It just exiles their guy, and it gives Duplicant their power and toughness, and that's it. It doesn't gain the abilities that their guy has, so keep that in mind. It doesn't gain those abilities that their creature has. And it doesn't, like, if you Duplicant your Captain of the Watch, then your Captain of the Watch is gone. This doesn't turn into Captain of the Watch and spit out 3 tokens. It doesn't make your tokens bigger. So keep that in mind with this card, because that's how I thought it would work, and it doesn't. So it's a little overcasted for what it does, but in this deck you can flicker it, and you need all the removal you can get basically, and it is removal, so that's why it's in the deck. So here we've got the Sunblast Angels, and yeah, if the opponent does get a turn to attack you, then killing all their dudes is pretty nice, and you can flicker him and do it again. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty nice, and it's a flyer, and I find it more relevant than Sun Titan. You'd think Sun Titan is really good in the deck with a lot of Flickerwisps, but a lot of the time I don't really find myself trading with Flickerwisp. I'm trying to keep them alive, and if I get to play, I don't know. If I get to play a Flickerwisp, I usually get to stay alive longer as well, so I don't need to trade with them. I just usually don't have Flickerwisp in my graveyard to make much use out of Sun Titan, and If you don't really have anything to grab out of your graveyard with Sun Titan, then he's just a 6/6 that's, sitting on the ground, and since you're usually forcing your opponent to not be attacking you, they can just block it and kill it. So, yeah. He doesn't do as much as a flyer like Sunblast Angel does. So I'm kind of disappointed because I like the interaction between Sun Titan and a lot of the cards in this deck. And I just didn't really get much out of it when I was trying it. So maybe you'll have more luck with it, but I just like having a flyer more. And one that can repeatedly be a one-sided Rare God is pretty nice. So we've got Captain of the Watch. I consider a must-run basically. It's a 6-cost Vigilance 3/3. And it puts 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. And other soldier creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Vigilance. So, like I said, this deck usually wins with flyers, but it's nice to have quite a bit of a board position to, delay them from attacking you, to protect yourself. And sometimes he can win the game, but usually he's just the guy that prevents you from losing the game by spitting out a huge army that can block their guys. So, and obviously he's just insane with Flickerwisp, and he's great with Cloud Goat Ranger because the Skifkin are soldiers as well. So, quite nice indeed. And the other 6 drops are just a little weird. We've got Urbis Protector here. It's a 1/1 that spits out a 4/4 White Angel creature token. Then I guess you can flicker it and get another 4/4 White Angel creature token. It just doesn't compare to what these do, so I don't like it. We've got Gold Knight Redeemer. It can gain you a lot of life, but I don't really like it when compared to these other 6 drops. We've got this 7-drop here, Ancestor Chosen. Just it's already worse than Gold Knight Redeemer, and it's more mana, so yeah, whatever. And we've got an 8-drop here, which I guess can clear the board, but I usually don't want to be clearing the board with the deck. At least not clearing my guys as well. So that's what this guy does. He clears everything but himself. And I like Sunblast Angel more because it only clears their guys, and it's cheaper. Or at least that's the idea here with Sunblast Angel. And we've got Mere Battlesphere that I am using. It's a 7-cost 4/7, and when the Mere Battlesphere enters the battlefield, put 4 1/1 colorless Mere artifact creature tokens onto the battlefield, and when he attacks, you may tap X untapped Mere you control. If you do, it gets +X/+0 until end of turn and deals X damage to defending player. Sometimes you get into these weird games where you never ever attack and you just start flickering this guy, and once you get enough Mere on the board, you tap all of them and attack with this dude and you deal him 20. Like, that can happen. The fact that he brings out so many dudes for you is already pretty nice, and he can just make the game last less long, I guess. But he's just a bomb. He's a great bomb, and just another one of those guys that puts out a lot of stuff on the board, and is just generally awesome with flicker type abilities. He is a 7-cost, but I think he's just worth running. He's just one of those must run, in my opinion. Either way, thanks for watching, guys. My name has been Nemo, and my name will still be Nemo next time. Hopefully I can cut a little bit out of this video, because it's 42 minutes as it is, so that's a little awkward. But I hope you guys get the point and get the idea of the deck build, and I'll be getting some gameplay with it, so stay tuned and see you next time.